Hey everyone, my name is Tom Kras. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to continue on from our last video where we just made some noise with VCV Rack. So, first of all, let's clean up a bit and let's just focus on the modules that we got from last week. So, we're going to add a new module today. This module is called MIDI to CV. MIDI to CV pretty much takes MIDI input from, say, a MIDI controller such as a MIDI keyboard. And converts it to CV, which is control voltage. So Rack uses control voltage or voltages in order to control volume, settings, input, output. It actually, whatever, everything is controlled via voltage in VCV and Rack. So our MIDI module is quite useful because we don't actually have a keyboard attached. We can use our standard computer keyboard, and we can make some noise with that. Let me just show you how this works. We take a scope. We take the gate. So the gate is pretty much on/off from our controller or MIDI controller. And let's say if I press a button on my keyboard, the Z key, for example, we get yay. If I hold it, it stays on. If I let it go, it stays off, off, and that's it off immediately. Let me just slow it down a bit so it's a bit more visible. So if I press Z, if I press X, if I press any key on my keyboard, we get this on, off, on, off, on, off. So that's a bit better than just constant noise, which we have here. Let me see how it works. So let's say we drag a cable over from the gate to the CV input of the VCA. Now we notice immediately that our voltage control amplifier is off. So let's press a key. On, off. That's pretty good. If we want to do Morse code, then we're sorted, but I don't think that's really what we want to achieve here. We want to get some nice, sweet music going. Okay, next thing is, okay, our keyboard is useful, but it's not very useful. What if we have a MIDI controller? What if we have an Arturia Minilab Mark III, which is a pretty sweet MIDI controller and got lots of different buttons and controls on it. So let's say we want to use that. Okay. Now I can. Now if I press any key in my MIDI controller, I can do my Morse code again. But that's not ideal either, is it? Because, I mean, every key on the keyboard seems to output the same sound. I don't think we want that, do we? So let's take a look at another output function here of the MIDI to CV module. We've got this V octave pitch output. So V is for voltage. So it's, if you see, there's one V octave pitch output. So that means there's one voltage for every octave on our keyboard. So our MIDI controller going in our case, is an Arturia Minilab, which is a keyboard. So it means that every octave is within the range of 1 volt. 1 volt. So C, D, E, F, etc. all are within 1 volt, somewhere in the range. So if I drag this down to a new scope, we can see this a bit better. Okay, so let's drag this down here. Let's slow it down a bit. Let's move the offset down so we can see it. So now if I press C3 on my keyboard, nothing happens. What happens if I press C4? We can see the rise. They all rise. So every single note on my MIDI keyboard is outputting a slightly different voltage, and it's 1 volt per octave. So let's see this in action. Okay, so let's drag this over to our voltage octave input on our VCO. Now this will control, will like act like an invisible hand and move our frequency oscillator or frequency dial around so the right note is outputted. Let's give it a go. So C3, C4, C5. Full keyboard. See, all different sounds. Is it any good to us? Sounds a bit tinny. But it works. We can get different notes from our keyboard now. Okay, so I guess we can, maybe in our next video, we'll look at making the sounds a little bit prettier. In this case, at least our keyboards are working and we can do some input. So our noise is controllable noise. My name is Tom Kras. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll talk to you guys all later.